Welcome back to Big Bob's Barbecue and More. Today we're going to make beef jerky. This is more of a modern type beef jerky. It's going to be soy sauce based. I say modern because it's not a cowboy style. Cowboy style, it would be no soy sauce. It would be salt, pepper, smoke, and dehydration. We're going to marinate this in a soy sauce based marinade. We're going to add some spices. We're going to have onion powder, garlic powder, some honey, black pepper, sugar, and we're going to marinate this for anywhere between 3 hours and 24 hours. It depends on your schedule. You have to make work what you can in your schedule. Last time I made it, I let it sit for 3 days. It was a little too salty, but I still ate it and the kids liked it. So as you can see, I'm not in the kitchen. I'm in the garage. My wife hates the smell of me making beef jerky. When that dehydrator fires up and starts sucking all the moisture out, there's a wonderful aroma of soy sauce. I love it, but I'm in my garage, and that's where I'm going to have to be. So let's get started. First, we're going to start with making the marinade. We're going to take 18 ounces of soy sauce. I like Kikkoman. If you like a different soy sauce, use it. It's going to be the flavor that matters to you the most. So we're going to take that, we're going to put it into a glass bowl. So 18 ounces, 3 cups. I buy this stuff in bulk. And if you find that you need a little bit more marinade, at the end you can just put a splash in there to keep all the meat covered. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of honey. I always buy a local made raw honey. This is raw and unfiltered. I'm here in North Texas. This is from McKinney, Texas, which is about 20 miles from here. Love this stuff. So we're going to take that, we're going to put in about 2 tablespoons. I'm not really measuring, I'm just going for it. We're going to put in some onion powder. We're going to do about a teaspoon. I'm kind of measuring that one. That matters. Next, we're going to do some black powder. No, not black powder, black pepper. Different hobby. Black pepper, we're going to do about 2 teaspoons of that. Garlic powder, we're going to put in about 1 teaspoon. I'll measure this one since garlic powder matters. That's a strong flavor. Now, one thing I like to do, I like to add a little bit of pink curing salt. This is pink curing salt number 1. Number 1 matters because the cure is less than 30 days. If you're going to cure a meat for longer than 30 days, use curing salt number 2. We're going to put in about 1 teaspoon of this. I like my beef jerky a little bit on the sweet side, so we're going to put in about 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now this is my own recipe. I've borrowed from other recipes. I eliminated some things I didn't like. I've kept things that I do. Feel free to play with this. You'll develop what you like. And don't be afraid to put different things in there. A lot of the flavors will mellow. So from here, I'm back. I've got my whisk. I'm just going to take this mixture and we're going to stir it up here. The tough part on this is the honey. You want to make sure that is dissolved and beaten into the mixture. Once we have that all combined, it's time to take care of the meat because you can't have beef jerky without beef. So for beef jerky, I use eye of round, roast beef, whatever you want to call it. Different parts of the country, it might be called something else. I have here a total of 6 pounds, so I've got 2 eye of rounds. There's this fat cap right here. We need to take that off. We're just going to take our fillet knife, our boning knife, whatever you want to call it. We're going to make a little slice in there, and we're going to pull that off. Just let your knife do the work. Get rid of the fat. I am not a trained chef, so I'm sure other people are better at this. But if you just let the knife do the work, you'll see how it runs right along the meat, and you don't waste any meat. You just get rid of that fat. You do want a nice lean cut. Some people use a skirt steak. Some people use a sirloin or a chuck. This is what's easiest for me. And you can just pull that off. We'll clean this up a little bit right here. We're almost there. We have a little bit more fat right here we're going to get rid of. And then under that fat cap is a piece of silver skin. You want to get rid of that too. That just is not fun to eat. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. I'll show you the finished product. We're just going to stir this up. Alright, we've got all the fat trimmed off this within reason. I've got 2 roast eye of rounds, or roast beefs. They came in the package that way. It's just shy of 6 pounds. The marinade should be good for 5 to 7 pounds, so we should be right there. Now, how are we going to cut this? One mistake I made over the years was cutting it across and having circular slices. Turns out that was wrong. We want to cut this lengthwise with the grain of the roast. And then we can cut it into nice strips later on. But that's going to make for a nice chewy piece of beef jerky, and one that you can sink your teeth into. If you cut it this way, it's like eating shoe leather. With the grain, we'll make it a much more enjoyable experience. Now, thickness. That's a very personal preference. I like to do mine about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe up to about 0.2 of an inch. It's a very personal experience. You're going to have to sit there and figure out what you like. With that, I'm going to get started. I'm not going to bore you with running a meat slicer. I have a meat slicer. You can always use a knife and cut it. Alright, I've sliced up all the meat. I've got some nice slices. They should look like this. Not too thick, not too thin. And I just drop them here in the mixture. I've got all 6 pounds here. So, turns out my bowl is too small. I've got enough marinade, but it's not all going to fit. So I'm going to transfer all of that meat with the marinade into another non-reactive bowl. Turns out this bowl is a giant food storage container. So we're going to do this. We're going to take our whisk and we're going to make sure all of that goodness, all those spices get down there. And that's the honey sticking to the bottom. So from here, we're going to make sure that every piece of meat gets coated. We're going to turn this, we're going to stir it. We don't want any piece of meat uncoated. This is where it really comes in handy to have a glove on your hand, because this is a pretty icky job. But it's not that bad, actually. So we're going to make sure this all goes in there, gets covered up. There's plenty of liquid. I'm just going to put a splash of soy sauce in there, make sure it's all covered up. And we're going to come back in about 1 to 2 hours after this is in the refrigerator, and we're going to stir this up and we're going to make sure it's all getting equally covered. Stay tuned, we'll be back. We are back. We've got our dehydrator trays ready to go. The meat has marinated for about 23 hours, so just shy of 24. So you can see it's a nice dark brown from the soy sauce. We're just going to put those on there, leave some space in between them. And we're going to make sure that they lay flat. So as I put them down, make sure they're not touching, leave some space here. And we're going to load up all of our trays. And I'd rather have too much space between them than no space, because our dehydrator is going to pull air, or push warm, dry air through all of the spaces, and we want our meat to dry evenly. And you'll see I have different sizes of meat, so that these are all going to dry at slightly different rates. Initially, this is going to take about 4 hours. And after about 4 hours, we'll check on it, see how it's doing. We're in North Texas. The air is relatively humid today compared to usual, so it might take longer than normal. With our usually very dry air, sometimes it takes less than 4 hours, which it makes for a little bit of a tougher jerky. So stay tuned, we're gonna load this up. I'm gonna put this on video. It might not make the final cut. Every once in a while you get a piece that just wanted to stay folded. Now you see this thicker portion right here? That's going to dry slower and be a little bit chewier at the end. I like variety in my jerky. Some people like it really tough and dry. Some people like it chewy. You have to find out what works for you, what you like. Excuse me. We started out with about 6 pounds of roast beef, just shy of it. And that means we are going to wind up with about 3.5 pounds of jerky. We're going to lose a lot to the moisture. The moisture reduction is going to drop the final weight of this. You will also see the meat shrink. And that is strictly due to the moisture reduction. And like I said, I'm in the garage. My wife hates the smell of this stuff. I think it's heavenly, but she wins. And based on the volume, we're definitely doing 2 batches in the dehydrator, if not 3. And this dehydrator is nothing fancy. I think I bought this for about $30 years ago. I think I bought it at Bass Pro or something like that. There are much better ones on the market. You do not need anything high-end. You need something that blows warm air and works. The multiple trays are nice. So we're gonna, now with the last tray, we're gonna put this on. We're gonna plug it in. And turn it on. Hydrator running. We've got a whole bunch more meat. We're gonna do another round in a few minutes, actually in a few hours. We'll take this out. We're gonna put the dried meat, the jerky, into a paper bag once it's finished drying to where we like it. The paper bag is because you're going to take that warm meat, you're going to put it in the paper bag and then put it in the refrigerator. If you put it in a plastic bag, moisture is going to condense and then your meat might get moldy, it's going to spoil. You want it to stay dry and you want that permeable layer. That way your beef jerky can keep for a very long time, weeks, months in the refrigerator. So the remaining meat that's still in the marinade, we're going to put that back in the refrigerator, and then when this is done in about 3 or 4 hours, we're going to put another batch in the dehydrator. We'll be back. We're at the 4-hour mark. I've been checking it periodically, and it's perfect. So I'm going to take each slice. I'm just going to load it into a paper bag. I'm going to work my way through the racks. So that's the first one. They're all nice and warm. By the way, the dehydrator, it runs at about 130 degrees. So it's not cooking it, it's literally just sucking the moisture out. And we're going to stack this into paper bags. Let it come to room temperature. And then we're going to put it in the refrigerator. If you want, you can freeze some. It doesn't last long enough in my house to freeze. Alright, I'm going to unload this and then we're going to get started on the second batch. All the extra roast beef that was in the marinade. We're going to start that second batch. We'll see you soon. Welcome back. We've got another batch of beef jerky that we're going to start putting on the dehydrator. The first batch, it took a little bit longer than 4 hours. It went pretty late into the night. Part of it took about 6 hours, but that's what happens when the humidity in the air is pretty high. So we've got some wild weather here. It's North Texas. Today is almost 80 degrees. It's February. So this batch, I think the time is probably going to be about 5 hours. It's warmer air, but it's also a lot more humid. So I'm going to start stacking this beef on in here. We've got hopefully only one more batch to go, but that looks great. All right, we'll see in a few minutes. Actually about 4 hours, 5 hours. When this is done, I'll show you the finished product. I finished up the last batch of beef jerky in the dehydrator late into the night last night. Turns out I had enough for 3 batches because I cut it a little bit thinner than usual. We started with almost 6 pounds of eye of round or roast beef, whatever you want to call it. I've got my trusty scale here, and we wound up with 2 pounds, 6.8 ounces. So we lost more than 50% of the weight just due to water. But we've got beautiful beef jerky, and this is what I'm going to be snacking on, if I can keep it away from my kids. If you like what you saw, and you appreciate everything we do for you, be sure to find that subscribe button somewhere over there, wherever it is. Find that subscribe button, click it. Make sure you get notifications. We're going to try and post a new project weekly. Now this was soy sauce based beef jerky. When it warms up here in North Texas, we're going to do a cowboy beef jerky, which is no soy sauce, really salt, pepper, smoke, and dehydration. It's a lot easier, but it's cold outside, and I don't like cold. I don't do cold. Be sure to subscribe. Make sure that you support me using any of those links down below. Happy barbecuing. Now it's time to clean up. I took the dehydrator, knocked off all the little bits and pieces that got left behind that got stuck on. Then you really want to soak that stuff before you put it in the dishwasher and kind of sterilize everything. Here's my tip for you. I've never seen this any other place. Take all the trays, throw them in a bathtub, close the drain, throw in some Dawn dish detergent, let it soak in hot water and knock all that stuff off. Most sinks aren't big enough to fit all those trays, and I'm too lazy to wait around. Throw them in, let them soak. Give them a couple hours, go away, go do something else. You know, scrub them a little bit and then throw them in the dishwasher, and they'll come nice and clean. That's how I do it. It's nice and easy. Maybe you don't want to know that they were in my bathtub, but it's nice and clean. And then you throw a little bleach in there, sterilize everything, throw them in the dishwasher, sterilize them again. It's overkill, but I like a clean workspace. We'll see you soon.